And so, like I started out with, we're going to be talking about Aleister Crowley and Thelema and his alien buddy, Aiwass, and how all that pertains to what we got going on with aliens and demons. You know, you might not think it does, but it does. And so we're going to be talking about that. This alien thing that basically dictated him the book of the law, the defining book for the Thelema religion, similar to how all these other religions start. There's just magically this alien astral elder that appears, gives them these things to write it down, golden plates or a book or anything like that, and that's how it goes. Good old Satan loves to imitate, right? He's the great imitator. He can't create anything, so he just imitates. And so we're going to be talking about that, or as Crowley would call Aiwass, which is the alien being, the astral being, his holy guardian angel. And so we're going to be going over that. And again, my goal is to show you the connection between aliens, as the world would say, and mystery religion. And so that's the main key with this. You guys know me. I like to take things from a different angle. I like to approach things differently than most people. And so I don't want to just go over the same old stuff. I want to look at it from, in my opinion, the more important side of things, which is the one world religion. Because remember, when we talk about the Antichrist beast system, we can get wrapped up in the first two pillars of the three-pillar system, which is the one world government and the one world economy. And we can start going over all the technology and the government stuff and what they're trying to do with new policies and laws and all these types of things. And that's good to pay attention to. But the most important thing, at least for what Satan's trying to accomplish, is that third pillar, which is the one world religion. That's ultimately what his goal is to use all of that other stuff to make it so people don't worship God, that they worship him instead. And so I want to take, again, from the angle of what's going on with mystery religion as far as the aliens and all that stuff. And we went over that last week when it comes to how the world defines aliens as opposed to what the Bible defines aliens. So if we look at the world's aliens, most people, if you ask them in this world, what's your idea of an alien, they'd probably give you one of these or both, or a multitude of these answers: of a non-human being from another planet or galaxy, a non-earthly intelligent life form, an ancient spirit-like guide, most likely has advanced technology and or some type of psychic ability, or just little green men. I mean, this is pretty much what the world thinks the alien is. This is what Satan wants people to think is an alien. He wants people, the world, to believe that there's other beings out there. And so he's using the world to deceive people into believing that. But if we go over what a true alien is, according to the Bible, we understand it's a demonic being or creature or spirit, fallen angel, an entity from outside of our realm/dimension. So as you guys know, we live in different realms and dimensions as opposed to the heavenly realm. We're living in the physical realm here, and all this stuff. There's different dimensions to that. I'm not an expert on that at all, but in order to understand portals, you have to have somewhat of an idea of what that is. And then usually it holds power not held by humans. Magic. Remember, Satan, he's able to do signs and wonders as well. That's a misconception that I think a lot of Christians don't understand. Is they kind of, as much as we hear people, you're trying to put God into a box. Well, I think a lot of Christians put Satan into a box. He has the ability to do these things, and he also has a demonic army that's able to produce some of these things like this, like signs and wonders and false visions and giving ideas and stuff like that. They have that ability. So that's important to understand, which is when we talk about these different religions, and there's these different quote unquote aliens or astral beings coming down, giving these people like Joseph Smith or Aleister Crowley or Alice Bailey and stuff, these astral extraterrestrial beings coming down, giving them instruction. It perfectly explains how that could be demonic and how Satan is using these things to give instruction to further what he wants done for his beast system. So that's a very important aspect that we got to understand when it comes to this stuff. And I fall into that trap too sometimes, because like when I'm researching, sometimes I just forget, or I don't want to believe that's like, oh, that's not possible. Satan can't do that, but he can. Not everything, obviously. Can't create anything and stuff, but he can do a lot of this stuff. And so we got to constantly remind ourselves that this is the spiritual warfare that we're in. It's not this physical stuff. It's not the people that we need to get angry at and throw temper tantrums at and all this stuff. They are the mission field. The people are the mission field. It's the spiritual aspect of what's going on behind them that we have to learn to recognize. Sometimes we got to quickly dissect it real quick in order to be able to get the gospel to that person at that time. You may not win them over at that moment. Most likely you're probably not. That shouldn't stop you though, because you've planted that seed, and that's the most important thing to understand. And if we have an idea of the background of some of the stuff that these people believe, we have the ability to disprove it, and then we can plant that seed of doubt as well as the gospel seed, and that seed of doubt can then start clawing away at the false belief that they hold, and then the gospel can work its way in. The Holy Spirit's good, guys. Don't lay down on the Holy Spirit. He's good at what he does. So that's also important to understand. And then, again, last week we covered the Age of Aquarius, both scenarios, and how both scenarios appear to be identical to what we are seeing unfolding not only now, but also what the Bible says is going to unfold in the day of the Lord as well, post-rapture. And I'll pull up the Age of Aquarius thing later on today to make a point. So that's what we talked about. That's what we're going over. And so today, let's get into what's going on. And I'm going to tell you, this is going to be bananas. This is actually an episode where I called my dad a couple times and I was like, can you believe what I found? Because it was just... So let's just go ahead and get into this. And we're going to be going into some religious history of Aleister Crowley, because we have to have an understanding of Thelema in order to get an idea of who this Aiwass character is. So Aleister Crowley, again, was not on my main list for this, but again, I truly believe that the Lord does place things in front of us in order to run into his will, according to his will, and it's on us to make sure that we accept it and move in the direction that he wants. And so I looked further into Aleister Crowley and his Thelema belief, and I came across some very interesting things connecting many quote-unquote coincidences. You guys know me. I do not believe in coinkydinks at all. And if something is just a little too good to be true, there's probably something there. That's usually how I approach things. And so I happen to come across a connection, possible connection. I'm going to make sure I emphasize that because I don't want people taking me out of context. Possible connection to coming up on the April 8th eclipse that's coming. So let's go ahead and get into this. Let's begin with none other than Mr. Aleister Crowley himself. Isn't he a jolly fellow? He just seems like the person that you just want to let your kids go buy ice cream from the ice cream truck, doesn't it? This is Aleister Crowley. Good old guy he is. Crowley was born in 1875 and died in 1947. He was most known for his connections to mysticism and occultism. And of course, he was the founder of the Thelema religion, as well as being a member of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn is a combination, along with Thelema, of Hermeticism, which goes back to Hermes Trismegistus. If you guys have seen my End Times New Age series, I did an entire episode on him, his alchemy, the emerald tablets, and how just important he truly is when it comes to all this stuff. People think I'm making up the name. I am not. As well as a connection to the Jewish Kabbalah, the mystic Kabbalah, as we know, is a demented, twisted form of Judaism, and we should avoid all things from the Kabbalah. But these orders, his religion and the order, stem, or they take roots from all of those, as well as some other stuff, some mystic stuff and occultism and esoteric works as well. There's some other stuff in there, of course. It's just a mishmash. Like all religions of the world, it's just a mishmash of the same religion. Gnosticism, which was, again, the world's first religion, which began in the Garden of Eden. Now, when it comes to Thelema, there's some things that reveal that its connection, as we should expect, to none other than Babel and mystery religion. Of course, if all religions come from the same thing, then obviously they're all going to lead back to the same thing, and this one is no other. The first thing is that the human history is, according to Thelema, according to Aleister Crowley and Aiwass, the alien who dictated him this, human history is split into 3 AEONS, which is basically the British version of, as we know here in the United States, EONS. It's basically the same thing. And so let's take a look at defined what is Aeon, because we got to get an idea. So if we just look up the basic definition of an Aeon, or Eon, however you want to pronounce it, It's basically an immeasurably or indefinitely long period of time, or an age, or a lifetime. It's an undisclosed lifetime. Some people like to say it's limited to 1 billion years. Others don't. But for most part, it's just an indefinitely long period of time. The Gnostic definition of aeon, because we understand that they have their own definition when it comes to this stuff, is an aeon is spheres of being that emanated from the Godhead and were attributes of the nature of the absolute. We start getting into some theory of mind stuff here. The absolute is basically the godlike spirit plane that everything is built upon. That's what that is. So it's not God. God would actually be an aeon according to Gnosticism, which again, we did a giant breakdown of Gnosticism in the End Times New Age series. I believe it's part 3. So check that out if you want to know more about what's going on with Gnosticism. But an aeon is some type of sphere, a spiritual sphere that jumps out of or emanates from the Godhead. And basically it's a divine force with the built-in function of fixing material air. So it's a spiritual being built to fix material air. And so in Gnosticism, Jesus Christ would be an aeon. He's probably the most, according to Gnostic belief, the most pure aeon. Because if you guys don't know, God, as we know him, is an evil God who trapped us in the Garden of Eden. So Sophia, the divine feminine, the wisdom being, sent down Lucifer, the light bearer, to free us from the prison. And that's what he did when he handed, or according to Gnostic, handed Lilith, who was Adam's first wife, according to this history, the apple, which she then reached enlightenment. And then God said, no, and then sent Eve down. And then if you look at a lot of Gnostic paintings and sculptures, you'll see that it's actually a woman in the form of the serpent handing Eve the apple. And so that's when they were unlocked. And then Jesus was sent down to show us how to reach enlightenment, along with people like Muhammad and Krishna and Buddha and all the other ones. That's why when you look at all these religions, they all place all of them on the same plane, because they're just aeons, according to Gnostic belief. That's kind of a quick rundown of Gnosticism. If you're confused, part 3, End Times New Age series, I really break it down to give you an idea what's going on. So what does this have to do with Crowley's version of aeons? That's the question. We got an idea of what the definition is. We got an idea of what the Gnostic belief is. What is Crowley's version that he received from Aiwass, his alien guide? Well, let's take a look at the Thelemic aeons, shall we? First, the first aeon was the aeon of, look who it is, Isis. If you guys don't know, Isis is the female of the unholy pagan trinity, or representation of that. If you guys don't know who the unholy pagan trinity is, you go back to the Tower of Babel. You've got Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. They are the unholy pagan trinity. Everything stems from Babel. Remember that. That's why everything is going back to Babel for the Antichrist beast system. And Isis is just a representation of Semiramis, of the unholy pagan trinity. So keep that in mind. And so the age of the great goddess, there's the divine feminine worship of mystery religion. And this is the beginning or prehistory origin. This was, again, the very first aeon. And the worship of mother and nature. So again, we're getting into divine feminine. We're getting into the Tower of Babel. We're getting into mystery religion that you will find in multiple books. Ezekiel 8, as well as Revelation 17 and 18, and there's other references all throughout Scripture of the mystery religion as well. The second aeon is the aeon of Osiris, and we got ourselves, again, the representation of Nimrod, one of the unholy pagan trinities, which was the age of religion and worship of death and glorification of suffering. This was when the Abrahamic religions came about, and according to Crowley and his little alien buddy there, this was the idea we were glorifying death. That's why you look at Jesus Christ, where he had to suffer and die and then be reborn again. They believed, Crowley and his alien buddy, they believe that that was a glorification of death and suffering and all that type of stuff. So that would be the second Aeon for that. Yep. And the third one, the current Aeon, the current age that we're in now, is the Aeon of Horus, which again, we're looking at the representation of Tammuz here. This is the current age. This is the age of self-realization and spirituality. Is this sounding pretty familiar from what we've been talking about? It's connected to the Age of Aquarius and the New Age. Mystery religion. This is what we see going on. And this is also the time of leaving behind the tyranny of Abrahamic religions and entering into the age of greater consciousness. When, again, we have been diving all throughout New Age and all these different religions and spirituality and the idea of what's going on. And all of them are leading to this exact idea, this exact belief that we are now leaving the religions. We're going past all the man-made rules, or in Christianity, the commandments that God lays upon us. We're moving past all that, and we're going to self-realization, self-actualization. Theory of mind is everything is energy and vibration, so we can create things. That also gets into holograms. We'll get into that stuff later. But it's all about spirituality, personal spirituality, reaching enlightenment in a higher conscious level. And so Thelema, Aleister Crowley, everybody knows him as the crazy occultic guy, which he was. He believed the same thing. The same thing that the Hindus believe, and the Buddhists believe, and the New Age people believe, and the theory of mind, and the metaphysical, and on and on and on. Freemasonry, and mind blank, Jehovah's Witness, and the Mormons, and stuff. All these religions, they all believe in this exact same thing. About reaching enlightenment, higher level, unlocking the God within us. And that's what's going on. And as you can see, it says it's similar to the Age of Aquarius, which, again, we went over what the Age of Aquarius, what it's supposed to be. And number 4 down there, dissolving of religions and embracing of spiritual enlightenment. It's all the same stuff. It is all the same stuff. Everything goes back to the unholy pagan trinity, back to the original world's first religion, Gnosticism, and ultimately goes back to the lie. You will be like God. Everything stemmed from that, spread from Babel. And now what we're seeing is everything, or as Revelation 17 would say, all these religions, all these movements and beliefs all came out of her. And now we're starting to see them all go back to her. And that's ultimately what we are seeing take place in government, in schools, in technology, in the economy. Remember, all this stuff came from Babel and all the religions. And they're all coming back to Babel. That's why whenever somebody asks the question, how is it all these thousands of religions across the world? How are they all seem so different. How are they all going to come under one? Easy. They all come from the same one. That is the easiest question. And this alien told Crowley the same thing. It's fascinating, isn't it? I think it's fascinating personally, but that's just me. But where does this all come from? What does this have to do with aliens and demons? Well, because, again, as I said, these were all divine instructions from what Crowley would call his holy guardian angel, known as Aiwass, spelled Aiwass. And it's kind of fascinating where God calls himself the I am, the great I am. And it's interesting how this alien here is saying, I was. The I was. Interesting. I wonder who that could be. Just something to think about. Again, that's just one of those coincidences where it's like, why on earth are you going by I was? Something interesting. Not to mention AI are the first 2 letters of that as well. Something to think about there. So you can look into that further. if you want to take a peek. But there's a lot more coincidences later. Trust me. You're going to think I'm nuts at the end of this thing. I'm not nuts. Maybe bananas, but not nuts. Okay, so basically what happened was back in Cairo of 1904, Crowley was on a honeymoon period with his wife named Rose at the time, and he was contacted by an extraterrestrial, an alien being, an astral elder, an enlightened one, somebody, a non-life form from outside of our planet. So again, we go back to the world's alien. It was a non-human being from another, it could be realm itself, which again, you know, these things come from different realms and dimensions. A non-earthly intelligent life form and an ancient spirit-like guide, along with psychic ability. He's not a little green man, and I'll explain that a little bit later, but it fits the world's alien. And so some people argue over if it was a demon or if it was was an angel, or if it was just something from his own subconscious that he just went nuts and came up with and whatnot. If you guys want to ask me my personal belief, I believe that it was an alien. And again, as we go through this, or not an alien, but a demon. And as we go through this, I think you guys will understand how I came to that conclusion. And so, just like we see from people like Alice Bailey, who she had her astral elder, the Tibetan. You see people like Napoleon Hill, who said that the devil was the one who came to him with the instructions in order to create the positivity movement, which again, we went over that in the End Times New Age series as well. And there's other ones out there, Helena Blavatsky and other ones as well. They all claim to have this extraterrestrial, this astral being, this intelligent being, a wisdom being, come down and give them instructions. But the fascinating thing is all of their instructions, every single time, all fit the same mold. Now, they might not say exactly the same thing, but they all fit the same mold of what we're warned about in the book of Revelation and Daniel, of what is coming. Everything, all the instructions that they give, all lead to what Satan wants to happen in the day of the Lord during that period, post-rapture. And so everything fits when it comes to being a demonic being that's giving them this instruction, whether it's Satan himself or a demonic being. You just never know. But they're able to do this. And it's no different with Crowley when this being, Aiwass, came to him with the book of the law, or also you can find it under the name of Liber al-Veligus, which was the Thelemic text that was dictated to Crowley by Aiwass. And this is where we start to see the possible connection to the eclipse. Okay, before I even start going any further, I just want to just put it out there. I'm not predicting anything. I'm not claiming that this is all something. I just came across way too many coincidences that connect to this date. And so I'm just going to present them to you. That's all I'm going to do. And at the same time, as we go through this, I know minds are going to start going a little wild. Let's remember the main goal here as we go through this. That's the best way I can put it. Let's just remember the main goal. And I'll, at the very end, after I go through all this stuff, I'll show you the side-by-side comparison of how everything all comes together. So hang with me. All right, let's do this. While Crowley was in Cairo, Egypt on his honeymoon back in 1904, the voice of Aiwass came to him on April 8th, April 9th, and April 10th. 3 days starting on April 8th. Over these 3 days, Aiwass dictated to Crowley the book of the law. And Crowley believed that Aiwass was a messenger from the enlightened astral beings of higher power and enlightenment. And so Crowley believed that he was selected to be the receiver of these instructions that were to guide humanity into the age of enlightenment and higher conscience, exactly as the Age of Horus lays it out, exactly as the Age of Aquarius lays it out, exactly how spirituality, New Age, theory of mind, and all these other ones also believe as well, that we are entering into an age of leaving behind the religions and entering into new spirituality and a higher conscience. Even Elon Musk says the same thing. Interesting. Now, what's important to note about the Thelemic religion, there we go, is much of it is, again, rooted in Hermeticism and the Kabbalah and mysticism. Hermeticism, again, we go back to Hermes Trismegistus, which is the being of both the Egyptian god Thoth as well as the Greek god Hermes. Now, some people ask me, do you believe that those, all like the mythic gods and stuff, do you believe that they are actual people? Yes, absolutely. And I believe, like the Greek gods and the Egyptian gods and all these, I believe that they were actually Nephilim. So yes, I do believe that these were real beings on the earth who were instructing these false religions. And so they were worshipped because they were of higher power, build, intelligence, and so on and so forth. So yes, I do believe that they were real. Do I believe Hermes Trismegistus was real? Absolutely. Especially since he was the one who created the Emerald Tablets, which have been basically determined to be the 7 principles of the universe. And again, we go over in depth on the End Times New Age series. But in case you haven't seen it, I just want to make sure you're up to date on what's going on. Hermes Trismegistus believed that he had these 7 principles to unlock the secret of the universe. And you can see the alchemy symbol there, which looks very familiar, doesn't it? It's in a lot of different things. But you have the principle of mentalism, the principle of correspondence, principle of vibration, again, energy, vibration. You can see where all of that comes from. The principle of polarity, the principle of rhythm, the principle of cause and effect, and the principle of gender. And all of what we see in the quote-unquote woke movement, as well as in the New Age and the spiritual movements and all these things, they all go back to that, including things like the transgender and alphabet movement as well, which is the principle of gender. It's all there. And that's why I talk about, when it comes to the woke movements and whatnot, that it's not a political fight. We're not fighting that political movement. What it is it's a spiritual movement rooted in mystery religion. And that is our enemy. Not the people, out there with raising their fists with their signs, pumping for trans rights and stuff like that. They're the mission field. Sitting there screaming at them is not going to do any good. Our goal is to get Jesus to them. So that is the most important thing we got to remember. That movement comes from this. Just like all the other movements as well. And so we have to remember to change our view when it comes to this. We're not going against the people. The people are the mission field. We're going against the seducing mystery religion behind it. So we got to remember to keep that in mind. So we got the Hermeticism, as well as comes from the Kabbalah, which of course is the Kabbalah, which is part of the Jewish mysticism. And coming with it is a popular component, which is the Kabbalah Tree of Life. I don't know if anybody has seen this before, but it's a variation on, you see it in a lot of different things, from alchemy to sacred geometry and all that stuff. And, all these things of, triangles and different formations of these things, you can find it out there. You can search for it. There's a ton of them out there. It all has to do with the same New Age belief of this, but this is the Kabbalah Tree of Life, and there's various different what are these called? Sephira, I believe that's what it is. Different Sephira, which are the circles that you see there. Yes, there's some words I got to try and remember how to pronounce, but those different circles are called Sephira, and part of this tree. I should probably bring it back up to make sure you guys can see it. If you guys look in the middle, you'll see the yellow one. If you guys can see the yellow one there, that is the Tiphereth, which is part of the, which is just another one of the Sephira, but it's called the Tiphereth, which is the central Sephira or guiding light of the tree. That's important to understand. The center one is the Tipperith, the guiding light, the central of the tree. The Tipperith is the balancing Sephira. Try and hang with me, guys. I know. The balancing Sephira, which provides balance and harmony between heaven and earth. It also represents divine consciousness, as well as the connection between the spiritual realm and the material world that we're in now. So this has to do with the balance and harmony between the spiritual and the physical. So heaven and earth, and so on, which is interesting because that alchemy symbol there on the left, that is also known as Mercury, which is also representation of heaven and earth. It's moving past into heaven and earth. It all comes from the same thing. Everything goes back. It all leads back. We have to remember that. All these religions of this world lead back to the same thing. Tower of Babel, back into the Garden of Eden. You will be like God. We have to remember that. So why is this relevant? Why did I bring up the Kabbalah Tree of Life and talk about Sephiras and Tipperiths and all these things? Well, what does that have to do with it? Well, Aiwass, Crowley's alien buddy there, is often associated with the Tipperith. Yes, the central, I'll just say circle, just to make it easy, the central circle there on the Tree of Life that has to do with balance and harmony between the spiritual and the physical. It's also divine consciousness in heaven and earth. He is known as that being. But there's another thing associated with Aiwass as well. And he's also associated with the Kabbalah practice of the path of the Aleph. The path of Aleph represents the connection of the divine and the human, as well as, red flag word, the unity of all things. Aiwass is known to be connected to the path of the Aleph. Now, here's where we start getting into things. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of that before, but I'm going to reveal some stuff. Now, I'm sure y'all are aware of the Eclipse coming on April 8th. I'm sure y'all have seen this before. You're aware of it. Many people have talked about this thing to death. And this is what they talk about, the X over the United States. They talk about the different cities and what does it mean? And is it a message from God? Is it something else? Is it judgment or this or that? I don't know. I'm not here to speculate on that because I don't know. Nobody knows. Anybody who says this is what it is, I'm going to sit here and say they don't know. Because it hasn't happened yet. And we have no idea what's going to happen. So we don't know. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before. But there's an aspect to this that is not being talked about. At least I haven't seen being talked about. And for some reason, they're leaving out one eclipse. There isn't two. There's three. But one's not getting talked about. And it happened in 2023. And it actually looks like this. You got 8/21/17. And you've got 8/4/24, the one coming up. That's your X. Everybody's talking about that. But for some reason, everybody is ignoring that middle one, which was last year in October 14th, 2023. That's not an X. Y'all know what that is? That's the Paleo Hebrew letter for Aleph. That's an Aleph. That's not an X. Remember, Aiwass is also connected to the path of Aleph. It's the ox, and then it goes into the Phoenician, and then there's the Paleo Hebrew, and eventually it changed into what we see as the letter A. That's pretty interesting. The final one to create the Aleph, to finish the path of Aleph, comes on April 8th, which Aiwass is represented as the path of Aleph, as well as his first message to Crowley was on April 8th. There's more. There's more. Hang with me. What on earth does this mean, and what does it have to do with Aiwass? Well, I just kind of gave you an idea of what's going on with that. Little too quinky-dink for me, personally. But again, I've got more, which is why I think it's important that I at least share this stuff with you. Another aspect of Aiwass is it's said by Crowley that in the few times that the being appeared in physical form, there was only selected times where Aiwass actually appeared physically. So that's important to understand. It wasn't just a voice. It wasn't just a light. He actually appeared physically, as in you could touch him. The few times that he appeared physically, he was described by Crowley as a tall, dark man in his 30s, well knit, so put together, active and strong, so he was built. He was a solid built guy. And he had the face of a savage king. Sounds like Nimrod. And his eyes were veiled, lest their gaze should destroy what they saw. I'm not sure what all that means, but that's fascinating. So we've got a well-built, attractive, active and strong, tall, dark man in his 30s that had the face of a savage king. But there's one final piece of that puzzle that really sets it off. Lastly, Aiwass always appeared dressed in Assyrian clothing. Not Egyptian, not Arab, Assyrian clothing. Why is this significant? Because in Scripture, the coming Antichrist has the title, the Assyrian. Isaiah 14:24-26 says, "The Lord of hosts has sworn, saying, surely as I have thought, so it shall come to pass, and as I have purposed, so it shall stand, that I will break the Assyrian in my land, and on my mountains tread him underfoot. Then his yoke shall be removed from them, and his burden removed from their shoulders." This is the purpose that is purposed against the whole earth. And this is the hand that is stretched out over the nations. The Assyrian is the coming Antichrist, the coming global world leader. And in context, this is the purpose that is purposed against the whole earth, is in reference to the day of the Lord, which will happen post-rapture when the Lord pours out his wrath upon the earth. You'll also find that the Antichrist has this title in Isaiah 10 and Micah 5 as well. It's not just a one-off. One last thing. You guys thought I was done? No. One last thing, if that's not enough. To finish this off, the last date that Aiwass delivered his dictation to Crowley was April 10th. So it started April 8th and then ended April 10th. I haven't lost my mind. Just hear me out first. According to the demonic Q movement, I went back and I dug into my Ingersoll Lockwood episode, which that's a doozy if you haven't seen it. And if you haven't seen it and you plan to watch it, make sure you watch it till the end, because the ending is very important. But I showed something that the Ingersoll Lockwood website, which is a Q movement website, posted back in 2021. And this is confirmed by the Wayback Machine. This was posted in 2021. Let's take a look at what was posted. If faith, prayer, and God variables factored in at the exponential rates, the Great Awakening reclaims humanity by 4/10/2024. That's April 10th. The last day that Aiwass, dressed as an Assyrian, finished off dictating to Crowley. So the Eclipse is the 8th. And according to Q, the Great Awakening reclaims humanity by the 10th. Let's line this up, because I just threw a bunch of stuff out there. Let's line it up. Aiwass dictates the Book of the Law to Crowley April 8th, 9th, and 10th, 1904. The coming eclipse is April 8th, 2024. Aiwass is connected to the path of Aleph. The 3 eclipses make the Paleo-Hebrew Aleph. Aiwass appears dressed as an Assyrian. The Assyrian is the title held by the Antichrist. The last day Aiwass dictates is April 10th, and Q predicts the Great Awakening to be April 10th, 2024. And as we know, the Q movement is straight from the pits of hell, is a demonic movement that is fully wrapped up in the Great Awakening and the enlightenment of society, which is the same stuff as Thelema and New Age and so on and so forth. It's mystery religion. Again, it's just too much coincidence for me. And especially since this wasn't even something that was on my list for this series. I had nothing written down about Aleister Crowley for this. And I don't remember how I just came across something that caught interest and I just kept going. I don't know. And then as I looked into this stuff, that's what I found. And I wasn't looking for stuff for the Eclipse. I wasn't planning on talking about that at all on my channel. I wasn't. Because all it is speculation, and I got nothing. I'm not going to speculate. I don't do that type of stuff. And then all of a sudden, here we are. An entire episode is about Aleister Crowley and the connections to this. I don't know. So what does all that mean? I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue. I'm not going to sit here and speculate and tell you it means anything. I just came across stuff that's just way too much coincidence for me. And so I want to share it with you guys to let you guys know what's going on with this and how all of it seems to go back again to mystery religion, all this stuff. I don't know. But here's my thing on this. First, again, I don't believe in coincidence. That's a whole lot of it. Second, Thelema and Q are both demonic and are all about the same thing. Awakening and consciousness. They're all about the same thing. Third, all of this stuff, we have to remember Satan is able to do these types of things to deceive the world and get people to fall in with it. He is making moves to get all these religions to all start falling in line. Not to mention we have Mystery herself, the great whore of Babylon, who's wrangling up all the babies that came out of her. They're all coming home. And then soon Satan's going to knock her off, take the spot, and declare himself to be God. And it's all through movements like this. It's all through movements like this. And again, I just want to make one thing clear so everybody's aware. I'm not predicting anything. Nope. I'm not predicting anything. I don't know if this means anything. I don't know. It's just stuff that I came across. I'm not predicting that the rapture, that the Antichrist, or anything is going to happen on that date, April 8th or April 10th or anything. I'm not predicting any of that. I'm not putting any faith whatsoever, and I want to make sure you guys understand that as well. Don't put any faith in Thelema or the Q movement or any of that stuff, because this is all wrapped up in mystery religion. So I'm not putting any faith in that either. But we have to understand that Satan is going to use these things to fool the world, because remember, if he just had a bunch of religions out there that continue to be false in some type of way, nobody's going to follow them. But because there's things that trail them along that happen to come to pass and stuff like that, people begin to follow along with it. And so there's going to be some stuff that, again, we can't fall into deception. We can't put faith in it, but we got to recognize he's using those movements, and he's using bits of truth and signs and wonders to get the world to fall in line with it. And I'm simply just showing you what I have found digging around Crowley, Thelema, and Aiwass. Satan is going to use various aspects of these different religions in order to deceive people into following them. And using demons and illusions and visions and signs and wonders, he's connecting people together. Unity. I always warn people, if you start hearing the word unity, and it's not in the exact biblical context, run. Run away. Get out of there. And remember, all of these religions, they all lead back to the Garden of Eden with the lie, you will be like God. And through things like this, through things like aliens and awakenings and enlightenment and the stars and the seduction of these religions and these signs and wonders, they will all come back into her before Satan takes his spot, declaring himself as God. Don't fall for the deception. Be aware of it. Understand what's going on with the spiritual warfare that we're in. But don't fall for it. Don't get caught up in things that we really shouldn't be getting caught up in. And above all, set your eyes on Jesus Christ alone. That is the most important thing above all. I know there's a lot of speculation about this eclipse. I know there is. I see it all over the place. I've seen more ideas and theories than I can count. I've actually lost track of the amount of theories that I've seen regarding it. I don't have one. I know it may look like I do because of what I presented, but that's not even my theory. That's just stuff that I came across. I don't have a theory on this, and I always tell you guys too, it's okay not to have opinions on things. I'm not telling you it's bad to have an opinion on the eclipse. Somebody's going to take it out of context. I know, whatever, send me an email. I don't care. I'm not saying it's bad to have an opinion. If you have an opinion, cool, that's great. But I don't have a theory. I don't have an opinion. Do I think it's significant or some type of thing? It could be, but I don't know. We just got to wait and see. But it's okay if you feel like you have to have an opinion. You don't have to have one. I just find this stuff to be very interesting, how I came across it. As simple as that. And I don't know if anybody else is talking about some of the stuff that I just pulled out. I'm sure there is. But if not, hey, there's something else for you to think about. But the most important thing, because I know sometimes we can get caught up in things like, again, like the ship thing in Baltimore and stuff too. Sometimes we can get so caught up in trying to figure out these things that, again, we lose sight of what we really are going up against, but also what we're called to do. We got to understand this is spiritual warfare. It's not physical. And we got to remember right now our time is running very, very short, and we're given 2 specific commands to do in this time. And that's warn people of what is coming. And that doesn't mean, some of the stuff where it's like, oh, warn people of this little thing or that little thing. Warn people of the religious deception that is in everything right now. Every element of what we see being constructed for that beast system is being ridden in by mystery religion for the goal of getting people to worship Satan at that midpoint of Daniel's 70th week. That is what we need to warn people of. And again, if you have not seen, I know it's long, it's 24 episodes, I get it. But if you haven't seen the End Times New Age series, I explain how that all came to be. But that's what's going on. Warn people of that. But the biggest one that we're told is to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. The one and only, he's not an aeon. He's not, the person who's here to bring us to higher enlightenment, to break out of God's prison. He's not just another prophet. No. He is the one and only God man. 100% man, 100% God, who came down, and it's his blood alone that can save us. And we have to share that. We have to spread that with people.